We want to remind everyone we have social media exclusive content like our 2-minute drill as well as other video content. To find that, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for more.
We're kicking off episode number 14 here on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Head coach Frank Monaco will join me shortly. But before we do that, we want to remind you of our sponsor. Our title sponsor is Accardo and Duhe Law Firms, your go-to for parish lawyers. We have a ton for you tonight. LJSAA recaps and previews, Tulane Saints, and of course we're going to have special guest Todd Black joining us later. And Coach, coming into this game, this week I should say, you know, semifinals are on the line. There's a ton of teams that are getting another opportunity. But one question I was told to pass on to you is, you know, in particular, you can kind of get a feel for some of these teams throughout the course of a season if you're local or you see them or they're in your district. But how does tape exchange work in terms of what you give and receive? Is it dependent on a team-to-team basis? Is it 3 tapes? Do you trade specific tapes? Or how does the handling in trading tapes between coaches work?
Well, Jason, what normally happens by agreement with the coaches, the old days there was VHS tapes and that people used to trade, and that was something physical. But now with the invention of huddle, which is a tremendous aid, coaches just agree to maybe the last three or four games, and sometimes, well, coach, I don't want this one because that was a blowout game. But most of the time, even if the coach does not agree, most of the time you're going to get it from someone else. So most coaches say, all right, coach, what do you need? They understand that I'm going to get it from someone else because it's so easy on huddle. They just press a button and I'm sending it to you. There's normally a guy dedicated on the staff to handle all of the film swapping and a roster that takes place every week. But it's so much simpler than it used to be. Years ago, we had to travel up north and meet them somewhere in Alexandria if you played a team from the north, and you swap VHS tapes, and maybe that was 3 or 4, and then you get back and you would complain about the quality of the film. And still sometimes they complain about the quality of the film, but basically it's by mutual agreement. But not many coaches are hardball about that anymore because they know eventually if you and I don't agree, we're going to get it from somebody else anyway. So you just as well get it and have all the games. Now, can you dissect 10 tapes and 10 games? You probably can, but I mean, it will take you forever to go through it. And coaches do it because they don't want to miss anything that might help them win the game.
Coach, how I know your staff was second to none breaking down tape and scouting opponents. How often, or did it ever happen where you would come face to face with a coach or a staff that would realize, look, I know they're going to outwork us in terms of tape. We're going to try to give them as little as possible and try to make it as hard as we can to give them something usable?
Well, I mean, what normally happened, what we did on Saturday morning, I would bring the boys in and do what we call king drills. And we do all weightlifting to get their soreness out and do their running, the condition. But then I would turn them loose. And then we had a quick meeting with the staff. And then we would break up because I wanted them to go to a college game, go to their family that day and rest up because normally that Friday night takes a lot out of you. And I mean, you really don't have much energy left. And I know I did, on Friday, the adrenaline was flowing and a lot of emotion. But we always came back on a Sunday and we met the whole day basically on a Sunday. Sometimes we get out of there 2 or 3 on Sunday, depending on the sensitivity of that situation. In other words, how good was that team and how many tapes you had to break down. So what you did, you broke it down, and now they have things you just press the button. If you break it down correctly, they can give you all the 1st and 10. They can give you all the red zone stuff. They can give you all the right hand, left hand stuff. So you really can kill yourself with data if you want to spend time doing that. But one thing about a football coach, you're never totally prepared. It might be Thursday night right prior to the ball game. You still got that iPad on your lap. And you're just going through the thing you're just trying to refresh yourself to make sure you got the game plan down and it's sound.
Thanks, Coach. And let's go ahead and take a look at our Prep Talk segment where we're going to be breaking down some of these brackets. Coach, it's semifinal week, and there's a ton of big matchups. Can you give us kind of a breakdown of what you see with some of these games?
Well, sure. All right. Division 1 non-select. We have Mandeville, which is a big surprise. 21 seed. They're the lowest seed of the whole bracket on both sides, playing number 1 Ruston, and that's going to be a real big game. Ruston, I think, is probably the team that's going to end up in the Superdome here. But Dutchtown is a team that no one thought that for the first time that this far. Dutchtown is going to play number 6 Zachary, and the reason why this is real rare because there's only the 2 and 3 and 4 in this particular bracket were beaten out. Number 2 Neville was beaten out. Airline was beaten out last week, and then Destrehan. So this is one bracket that the 1, 2, 3 seeds did not hold up. Ruston was the only one left in that bracket. But you look for Ruston Zachary. I think a game in the Superdome. Division 2. You have Opelousas. In fact, that ball game, by the way, is going to be played on December 9th at 7 p.m., which is the Saturday. Will be a 7 p.m. Matchup there. December 8th at 12 o'clock. Yeah, this particular division. Opelousas, the 12 seed, playing number 1 DeSoto. And Cecilia, the number 2 seed, playing Northwest, was a big surprise. They're number 2. I was wrong. They're the lowest seed that made the tournament. They're 22. And the teams that got beat here were number 3 Assumption, number 4 Lutcher were defeated. So the top 4 didn't make it in this bracket also. Division 3. By the way, this game is going to be played at 3:30. Division 3, and this is the non-select side. Union Parish, the number 4 seed, playing number 1 Gina. Gina. And Gina, I mean, they're the team that beat from what we understand. But watch the dark horse here. St. James, number 3, is playing number 2 Sterlington. So this particular bracket held up exactly, and it showed the power rankings were pretty accurate with this particular bracket. And Division 4, this will be December 7th at 7 p.m. This game will be played. Haynesville is the 4 seed playing Logansport, which is the number 1 seed. And Oak Grove, number 3, playing Kentwood, the number 2. So this bracket is held form, and it's exactly as advertised and so forth. So you can see where the power ranking system does work sometimes, but there are a few upsets in here. And D1, here we go. December 8th at 7 p.m., which will be a Friday night. With this car, number 5 seed, playing the Acadiana. Acadiana had a big win on Saturday against the number 1 seed, knocked out Holy Cross, who's the number 1 seed. Acadiana with their Veer offense is here. They've been here before. So look for that's going to be a real good matchup. They have never played Carr, and with that Veer offense, and they actually played some defense last week too. But we all know how talented Carr is, and then the Cinderella in that group is Rummel, number 18 seed, playing the number 3 Catholic High. Catholic High had a big win against John Curtis last week. The last play of the game, they scored a touchdown pass. Rummel, no one gave them a chance. They're the Cinderella team here. Hopefully, they got one more game to get the silver slipper. And this could be an interesting matchup for them. And that game, as I said, will be played December 8th rather at 7 p.m. In D2, by the way, Holy Cross was number 1 seed. Captain Shreve was the 2 seed, and Brother Martin was the 4 seed. They were all eliminated. So that you got a 5, an 8, an 18, and a 3. Division 2, number 5 Shaw is playing number 1 STM St. Thomas More. St. Thomas More, we all know how talented they are. They're moving up in class next year. So Shaw has to travel there. Turlings Catholic is the number 7 seed. They're playing LCA. This should be a real good game. It'll be a matchup of a previous game that they had. LCA is the number 3 seed. Remember who's not there. Number 2, E.D. White was defeated last week. And number 4, John Kennedy was also defeated. Division 3, Duhe, number 4, playing SEC, number 1 seed. A game that everybody saw coming. That's going to be head-to-head competition. It's going to be a real good game. St. Charles has been there before. Duhe has been there before. So this would be a pretty good. This would be a real good matchup. Duhe's got some talented, explosive players, but St. Charles is just a 3-phase program that plays real continuity football. Newman, the number 3 seed, is playing Calvary Baptist, number 2, and this bracket held up exactly as advertised with their power ranking system. 1, 2, 3, 4 are still there. That game will be played at 3:30 on Saturday, December 9th. And then Division 4, this game, December 7th at 3:30, Riverside Academy, number 5, is playing Vermilion Catholic, number 1. And Riverside beats St. Martin's. Again, they were the number 4 seed. Washita Christian, number 3, is playing Southern Lab, the number 2 seed. All these games will be real good matchups, I think, in that particular division. And so I think we got some good teams, some good matchups. And I think when you look at the bracket here, there might be some surprises because once you get this far, you never know. Because sometimes these teams that are favored, they have their eyes on the Superdome a little bit too quickly, and they forget to play that semifinal ball game.
Thanks, Coach. And when you look at these brackets, there's a lot of teams that are, as I kind of discussed, there's a few teams that made it. I think Duhe has made it 12 straight years in semifinals. St. Charles made it 10 straight years. But ultimately, when you look at these brackets, 3 of the 8 are exactly as you said, chalk. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. One bracket is 1, 2, 3. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 5, and that would be Division 4 select. So, looking at these brackets and reading into it a bit more, what can you take away from that? The fact that 3 brackets are straight chalk and 1 might as well be chalk.
Well, I think what you take away from it, the colleges need to look at the system that Louisiana has. I know they have to tweak it, but they have to look at this thing works. It works, and the power ranks that you really get a lot of points, and you get credit for playing a real good schedule, and not just to play some slappy teams just to get a W. As a lot of coaches don't understand that. They want to look at the gaudy record. They think that's the most important thing. But yet on the flip side, and I use Romo as an example, they look at the schedule they've played. So right now they can go into the playoffs and say, well, it doesn't matter who we play. We've seen this kind of talent before, and then so I think that this thing really works. And if a team gets hot, or maybe they get some players back that were injured early, and I think that's important. Then the coaches staff understand sometimes you don't know these personnel until someone gets injured. All of a sudden, someone gets elevated and they become a very productive player for you. But I think colleges need to look at this and say, well, they need to come up with their own power ranking system, and because there are a lot of those conferences out there that are a lot of weaker conferences than, let's say, the SEC. Sometimes the SEC might not be a real powerful conference this year. Nobody in the SEC can play defense all of a sudden, So let's look at the power ranking on just like they do in the NFL. Let's look at it also for colleges too.
Coach, kind of piggybacking off of that, what would be your proposal for the transition to college? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but you kind of brought it up. If you were to introduce a power rating type system in the college football game, we know a large portion of the power rating and the power points comes from playing up, right? So if you're a team in Class A, 1A, then you play a 5A ball club, you're going to get points just for playing up. How would you adjust for that maybe in the college game?
Well, you won't do that depending upon the conference. You have to really strictly hone in on the level of competition. Basically, you have to get the wins. Naturally, you're going to get points for that. And depending upon the level, like if you play a lower level school, for instance, then you don't get any points for that. And I think that's important because a lot of the teams are fattening up their schedule with some of these lower echelon schools. But I think that's going to be a system that you sit down and say, okay, maybe the Power 5 team, if I play a Power 5 team, I get more points for that if I win. And if I don't, if they're outside the Power 5 and then maybe a lesser, let's say they play in the Sun Belt or CUSA or American Conference, they're outside the Power 5 team, maybe I don't get points. So it has to be tweaked. I'm sure they can come up with a very, very simple system because they already do that. The gamblers already do that. They already have a strength index. They already have the strength of schedule index. They already do that. So that would be easy for them to incorporate something similar to that.
Thanks, Coach. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our college football talk as Tulane pulled off a nice win this week over UTSA 29-16. And it's a big win for them, but also we know what's coming up, right? You're going to be having a home game against SMU this week, which is a big opportunity for them to win another conference title on their home turf. And we know SMU can put up points and make some noise, but Tulane has done a really great job of being consistent, not playing over themselves. And again, only one loss to a team that's very highly ranked right now in Ole Miss.
Well, that, and remember this, they played Ole Miss without their quarterback. And that's very important, their second-team quarterback. Now they're playing SMU without their starting quarterback. But go back to the previous game that they had against UTSA. There was a tough ball game for a while. Frank Harris, their quarterback, is a 6-year quarterback. They did a nice job of slowing him down and made him look human in that particular ball game. It was close for a while, but I think that they hit a couple of passes there, and they have a freshman receiver. They still have the injury bug. Right now they have two of their best receivers that they're out. And there's the speed guys. And so they had a defensive back that's out, but basically they managed to win it. Coach Fritz did a phenomenal job. I've said this many times. He's got to be the best coach in the country because he doesn't complain about who's out there. He just says, let's go out there and you play. I don't care who you are, I expect you to do the job and stuff like that. But now he's got an SMU team that's really putting up a lot of points, and I'm sure this quarterback will be very, very effective for him. But a win here, it means that they will get the highest seed of the non-Power 5 team. And there are people projecting maybe something like maybe a matchup with Texas or even Washington if they should lose. I mean, that's a phenomenal matchup for Tulane's program.
Coach, kind of piggybacking off of the idea of the conference championship games, and of course, looking at the big picture, if they win, that's a major opportunity. But let's look at just the conference championship game in general. We know most of these conference championships are played in neutral sites, right? You have Atlanta, you have again, I'm not sure where some of the other ones are played.
Dallas, yeah.
Right. Dallas, yes,
yeah.
Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other one was played in. Is it in Vegas?
One's in Vegas. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but the bottom line is a lot of these are played at these neutral site stadiums, right? What do you think of, and what do you make of playing these games at a home field and giving the team that has the better record, that's had the better season, the opportunity to treat their fans and get home field advantage for one of these games?
Oh, it sure does. It's kind of like high school. You get the benefit of doubt of playing at home. You sleep in your own bed at night. You know the ins and outs. You know the routine because you've played there maybe 7-8 times already this year. So I think that's a huge advantage. And the crowd, it gives the crowd a chance to get into frenzy, and that emotion is very, very important. I mean, football is a game of emotion and intensity, and that's so anytime you can add to that. And, I think that really helps your chances. And plus the fact that, just those little nuances that about playing at home, you know what to do. And there's no curveballs. The routine is already set. You don't have to worry about the itinerary. And that's a huge difference. And I think a big advantage. And that's why when you look at the odds makers, they always give, they say the home field advantage is worth at least 3 points. And I can agree with that.
Thanks, Coach. And looking at our next recap, I should say, is LSU versus A&M. LSU won 42-30. Was a rough go for a lot of the game. LSU had to fight back, battle through adversity. Texas A&M executed their game plan perfectly. LSU's defense, true to form, couldn't get off the field on third down, and A&M made them pay for it time and time again. Ultimately, it was a fourth down conversion by none other than Jaden Daniels that kind of turned the tide, and an interception. Defense that set up some scores, but Daniels, even on an off day and due to nothing of his own, still put up some pretty solid numbers. Could have scored another touchdown and padded some stats. They chose to take a knee, but again, you have to be impressed with the performance that he's had and the offense of this team. A really incredible offense.
Well, I think he'd have had bigger stats had the defense given them the ball more. He needed more at bats. He made some great throws. Those 3 touchdown passes he threw were great throws and great catches by those receivers also. And I felt badly for him for a while there. If you watched the game, you didn't know if they'd go get the ball back because, as you mentioned, their third down defense was atrocious. And they're playing zone and they're 2 people side by side. They bust coverages. But let's say maybe they don't have the talent that they thought they had on defense, and I don't think they have the speed. I've said that before. They don't have the speed at linebacker to be able to play man for sure. The defensive front is very, very average when it comes to pressure, and their secondary would have been a revolving door. They actually depended on a lot of guys that are supposed to be there, and they're no longer with the program or whatever happened. But winning that many games, but it just goes to show you how important Jalen Daniels is. And if he's not on that team, they're a 5-5 team. If I say 5-5, they're 6-6 at best. If he's on that, not on that football team, and because their defense is just so porous.
Yeah, and Coach, we've talked about it quite a few times, but again, it's unfortunate for Daniels that you will see Bo Nix get another opportunity to play some football this weekend against Washington. But when you look at the strength of the conference, the strength of schedule that he's played, the strength of the defenses that he's played, the numbers that he's put up, in my mind, you can't convince me otherwise that Jaden Daniels is not the most deserving player of the award for the Heisman Trophy. But unfortunately, the way that this award has been given, it has not truly been given to the best player in college football. And I'm not just talking about it in this year, but in years past, we've seen it go to, and not just any player on offense, but the best, the starting quarterback for the team that compiles the most wins and who puts up the most yards. And it's unfortunate because that's not what the award was truly designed
well,
to do.
basically, it should go to the guy that has the most impact on your team. And I mean, regardless of the stats, he has a tremendous impact on his team. The other guys have a better supporting cast. And that's the most important thing. And I look at it another way. I look at it, what guy, I'm an NFL coach, what guy do I want to play on the next level? Peyton Manning was screwed when he didn't get it. Yeah, I mean, he was really screwed. But we've given it to Mark Ingram, and Mark Ingram ended up being an average, having an average career. You know what I mean? We've given – just think about some of the past Heisman Trophy winners that never panned out. But I'm going to give it to a guy that I think is going to have a great NFL career also to go beyond that. That's my Heisman guy, and regardless of a stat here or there, because stats can be padded. You saw Jalen Daniels stayed in the game previous to that, the Georgia State game, just to get an extra stat. I mean, stats can easily be padded. I mean, you know, but is that meaningful? Well, if you're in the Heisman Trophy race, I think that's all done for that reason. But anyway, that's a story for another day. We'll find out in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, and when you take a look at some other matchups locally, we also had Southern taking on Grambling in that matchup, and Southern took the 27-22 victory in that game. What do you make of that one?
Coach of Southern had a great goal line stance, the first and goal from the 2-yard line. They had a goal line stance to keep them out, and Southern showed up with a quarterback that had never started, so he was a surprise starter. As you know, they had a lame duck coach, an interim coach, coaching for him in that ball game, and naturally, there's so much activity around this ball game. You know, the battle of the bands that happened the night before, the activity of all sorts of things that go on with this ball game. It's a spectacle, and a game breaks out. Basically, it's like a big Mardi Gras. And but Southern wins again. I think that the series is now 27-25 as far as the series is concerned. But it's a great game for TV, and the bands are just tremendous. You know, what they call the Southern Band, the human jukebox. I mean, they're just tremendous just to watch them. And some of those band members are more athletic than some of the players.
Looking at our next game, we had Nichols, unfortunately, going on the road and being defeated 35-0. Although they made headlines for other reasons, being trapped at the airport over in that crazy situation. But again, you have to tip your hat to Nichols and the way they played this season. Last season, we were talking about they just can't get things right. They continue to lose games late, and it felt like they were really in an upward climb last year and just couldn't find their grasp, couldn't find their footing. And this year, they really turned things around. You have to be impressed with the job that Coach Rebo and the staff did.
Well, no question. I mean, look at how he started. TCU, Sacramento State, one of the best teams in that division. And then Tulane on the road there. And I mean, just so they had some early competition, but then they went on to start to win some games and against with a new quarterback. So Coach Rebo did a tremendous job with that. He's up for one of the coaches of the year also. So let's hope and pray that he gets that. I know they had a tough flight back. Well, not a flight. They were in the terminal for 17 consecutive hours, and I know that would be miserable without any water or food right there for those big players. So but thank God they're back home, and thank God they're safe. That's the most important thing.
All right. Thank you, Coach. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our Saints segment, where Saints found a way to lose yet again, 24-15 in this matchup, and put up yards offensively. But, Coach, it seems like we're having the same discussions every week when it comes to the Saints' inability to put up points, and it's kind of frustrating being able to having to repeat the same conversation every time.
Well, you know, number one, they had 444 yards of offense. They moved the ball. I know they want to throw the blame on Carmichael, but they moved the ball. And I mean, but you can't control the pick. I mean, Carr throws the pick down there at the inside in the red zone. They throw a hitch route in the red zone. The safety just jumps it because normally when you throw that route, there's somebody that affects the safety to keep him from robbing it. I mean, that's something you do in high school. You control the safety with another route. But then Hill fumbles on the 8-yard line going in. I mean, that's not Pete Carmichael's fault. I think, you know, everybody wants to throw the blame on the play caller. I thought they moved the ball extremely well. Then all of a sudden you got the two receivers that go out. I mean, the Shashid, whatever his name is, he's out of the lineup. Then Alave gets a concussion. So now you're playing basic with guys that haven't gotten many reps in practice. So, and they had a similar problem last year with Michael Thomas being out again and stuff like that. And I mean, they're playing with guys that are basically backups. And are they going to get them back? I don't know. And I got to say this: you look back and over the draft, the left tackle that they took 2 years ago has not panned out. The Turner guy that they took 2 years ago, he is not panned out. The Foskey kid, he is not panned out. So I mean, the only one they have is the Breesy kid from North Dakota. I mean, he's from Tennessee. Oh, no worries, from Clemson. I'm sorry, he's from Clemson. He's playing pretty well. But you go back and look, and the guy said it right in the paper the other day. They gave up 2 first-round draft choices a few years ago for Marcus Davenport. He's gone. I mean, so you look at you got to look at I don't believe in taking first-round draft choices and waste that on offensive linemen. I think that players out there that you don't miss on, make sure you don't miss on a first-round draft choice. But they've done it. So I feel sorry, and everybody's going against Carr, and everybody's going against Pete Carmichael, and naturally Coach Smith. But it's more than that. I mean, I don't know. They have the personnel. All this hoopla about how good they're supposed to be. These guys haven't performed. So it's another story here. But there's more to that story that we don't know. Hopefully, they can get it going in the second part.
Coach, thank you. And you bring up a really great point about the draft, and it's something that when I watch the draft, it really bothers me, and it typically happens with the Saints. I find, and I kind of want your take on this. I find that so many GMs and franchises get tunnel vision, and what I mean by that is they look at a position of need and they say, well, we have to get this position with pick 1 or with round 1. And what happens is you have maybe 3 tackles who are at a first round evaluation. And then you have maybe some guys who are a late second round evaluation. And it seems like in particular, the Saints default is we have a later first round pick. Let's go with an offensive lineman. And it's always a guy who is evaluated at late second to third round pick. And I don't understand what their affinity is with this, but it hasn't really worked in the past, and yet it continues to be their mantra, or they continue to move up, trade more assets away, and they're giving up too much and not reaping any rewards. They've only really had 1 draft class in the last 6 or 7 years, and it paid big dividends, but what have they done since then? As you mentioned, guys are not on the team, they're not sustainable, and they haven't really taken a legitimate quarterback, and this is why you find yourself in this revolving door of quarterbacks, bringing in Carr, and you still have Jameis on the team, but that's why they're in a predicament they are now, because they keep trading away assets.
Right. I agree, but we can't correct it from here.
Right. All right, so that'll do it for our first segment. Before we head out, we want to remind you that Ricardo and Duhe Law Firms is the title sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. They are your go-to River Parish lawyers. We'll be right back.
Samuel Ricardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Ricardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Welcome back to the Let's Be Frank video podcast. We want to welcome our special guest, former high school head football coach and co-host on Louisiana Prep School Board on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Our special guest is Todd Black. Todd, thank you so much for joining us. And I know you cover a lot of the high school teams in the Baton Rouge area. Whose odds do you like best at this point in the season to win that title?
Oh, man. Golly, you put me on the spot, because if I say what I'm going to say, I'm going to be in trouble. I think Zachary is going to be a tough task for Dutchtown. And I think if Zachary can get past Dutchtown, Ruston and Zachary in the Dome will be a good matchup. I believe Catholic High is going to have a really good shot. I thought if they got past John Curtis that they would probably be the favorite to win it there. And then you have Southern Lab. I just don't think can get past Ouachita Christian. You know, Ouachita Christian is just so strong every year. Coach Fitzhugh does a great job with them. And I'm trying to I know St. James is going up to Sterlington. That's going to be a tough game for them. Am I missing anybody from this area? I think.
Yeah, St. Charles Catholic.
Well, in Duhe, right? So I'm going to tell you, I did get to see that game in the when they scrimmaged earlier, and I thought St. Charles Catholic probably got the better of them. I think it's going to be a great ball game. And Coach, I'm not saying this just because you're here, but I do think I just like the way St. Charles is playing right now. I like the way they play with confidence. They're disciplined. They're going to be in the right spot. And ultimately, when that's said and done, those type of teams that don't make mistakes will end up winning the ball game. And I think St. Charles Catholic is going to beat Duhe. Be close, but I think they'll have them.
Okay, well, good. I appreciate you saying that, Coach. I
don't mean anything.
Coach, let's. I want to go back and tell our viewers exactly your background, so they know that you're not just some guy that just fell off the turnip truck. That you actually know a little bit about this game, and you and I had a chance to enjoy one another a little bit at the Manning Passing Camp this summer, which I was surprised to see you there, and pleasantly surprised, I might add. But tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
You know, this all started when the LHSAA. So I went down to Orlando, and this guy tried to get me to coach, and I said no, and he said just come out here one day. So I went out there one day, and he had me, and this was like in 1995. And so when I came back to Baton Rouge in 1997, I was looking for a place to coach, and I ended up at Bishop Sullivan, which is now St. Michael. Well, make a long story short, that's when the CECP rule, which is a rule that the LHSA passed that allows people that are not necessarily a teacher at that school to help coach. So I took advantage of that, and I coached at Woodlawn with Drew Nettles and Redemptorist all the way up to Dutchtown in 2018. Meanwhile, I was doing a show with Gordy Rush, Louisiana Prep School Board, and I've been covering high school football since about 2011. Meanwhile, I also was coaching my kids during that time. And then here this past year, I just started coaching freshmen at Dutchtown. And so I'm intertwined in it. I love it. It's my passion, and I wouldn't, if I had it all to do over again, I'd probably just do that. But I'm currently in sales along with coaching and also doing the ESPN scoreboard show and doing quarterback lessons on the side.
You know, great. Coach, if you had gone into coaching, you'd be eating lunch meat sandwiches like I do, for years. You know what I mean? So you made a great choice there. Coach, how do you enjoy the Manning camp, this past summer? We've had a lot of guys, Jalen Dane, who's there, and along with some other guys, for the last few years, we've always had the Heisman Trophy guy that is actually attending the Manning Passing Academy.
Are we going to have it this year?
Yes.
I think so too. It'll be interesting, but I really have liked it. This was my second year there, and so I enjoy meeting everybody. I enjoy how everything's organized, and it's watching those guys throw the football on or Thursday nights or whenever that is just insane. But it's seeing a different side of it. And I think the Mannings do such a tremendous job with it. They just don't talk the talk. They get out there and walk the walk too. They're out there working and trying to help those kids get better. And, that's why I enjoy it, because it's about making kids better and giving them as many reps as possible and staying hydrated, because it is hot.
No question. And we really miss Buddy Stevens that passed, and because he was instrumental in organizing all those fields that you saw out there. So we really miss him, and I think they're going to do a special tribute to him in the spring. Todd, tell us a little bit, what's your take on what's going to happen with these college playoffs and then college football? I'm sure you're up to date on who's going to win it and the whole deal. What's your thoughts on what's going to happen on Saturday?
I think Georgia handles Alabama. I think that, I don't think this is one of Alabama's better teams. And I think Georgia's kind of been going under the radar, and they seem to be starting to peak at the right time. Outside of Georgia, Michigan, I guess, Michigan, Texas, Florida State. Who am I missing?
Washington and Oregon.
There you go, Washington, Oregon. That's why I'm missing them. They're up in the Northwest, and I hadn't got an opportunity to see those two teams a whole lot. I just feel like that you're going to have Georgia in it. You're going to have one of either Oregon or Washington. So that's going to be two. I think you'll have Michigan is 3, and then Florida State. Let's try those 4.
Yeah, if you give me some money, Todd, I'll bet those. You know what I mean? If you give me some of your paycheck,
some of my money, like on the craps table.
Coach, you're always up to date on what's going on with the LHSAA. Is there anything that out there that you might want to share with us about the Louisiana High School Athletic Association? I know you're up to date on what's going on, and because next year there's a push to go. I say in January there's a push to go to divisions. But I found out today that there's talk about people maybe not wanting to do that. So they wanted to go to divisions in football and rather than districts. And now I understand that might be a tough go in January.
Coach, I think people feel like the LHSA can do things on the drop of a dime. And it's not that easy. And with Mr. Bonine there, he and I have got to know each other pretty well. And I think he's been fair in everything that he does. He's consistent with it. And he doesn't want – what happened in 2013 was kind of a knee-jerk reaction, and it turned into a disaster, the way they did the divisions and everything. That can't happen again. He's just kind of over the last 2 weeks, Coach, I think there's probably 8 or 9 games that were decided with a 2-point conversion under a minute to go in the game. And those are type of ball games that are going to draw people to come. And those are the type of competition that playoffs should bring. And prior to that, it was teams with no wins in the playoffs. And I think that's ultimately you've got to find something that holds the integrity of the brackets at the end of the day. You can't have teams in the playoffs just to be in the playoffs. For instance, I looked if this year it was combined, there would be like 6 teams in the playoffs with losing records. Most of them would be 4-win teams. There's one that would be 3. It was Patterson, I think. But ultimately, they've got to be able to keep the integrity of the brackets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that I just could not stand prior to when they split. They just didn't care about the select schools. They threw them over there and just said, play.
They
And that's
basically
not
kicked
right.
them out. They basically kicked them out. That's
Basically.
what they really did. Yeah.
And it wasn't, it's not fair. You're hurting the kids.
Right.
I mean, those kids don't get the experience of going across the state and playing in playoffs and driving into St. Martinville, seeing your jersey hanging off a pine tree. And, those are things you don't ever forget. And, not being able to play, there were so many things wrong with it. Mr. Bonine has tried to do what he can do within the parameters of the Constitution to correct it. And, when you're chicken salad story, and he was dealt a rough hand, and it's been a long hoe, but I think that we finally got better competition with the playoffs. That's for sure.
Todd, I'm going to switch gears a little bit with you. Tell me a little bit about, do you know of any recruits in the state that you've seen a lot of them? Anybody kind of floats your boat that the public should be aware of?
I'm not one that follows the recruiting a whole lot. And the reason for that is, when signing day, it's like kids still have to grow. You just don't know how they're going to be. I don't get that excited about it. But I knew last year there was a good crop of quarterbacks, and I think there's a good crop coming up in a couple of years for sure. There's a ninth grader here in town, that's 6'6", great kid, throws the ball really well. That's going to be looked at a lot. But other than that, Coach, recruiting kind of confuses me sometimes, because I think there's some kids out there that should be recruited, but we get told, oh, they're just not, if they just had another inch, or if they just were this. When they have the grades, they have the intellect, they have the work ethic, they have everything you want except that 1 inch. And that just frustrates me, because I think there's good kids that get passed over because they don't fit the measurables.
No, I agree.
And that, along with the not NIL, but the transfer portal, I think the kids struggle. I just don't know, because colleges are going to take a chance, right? They're going to take a chance on somebody that's already played than they would a kid coming out of high school.
There are two phases of that, Coach. One, the high school athlete is really getting shafted now in recruiting. Mm-hmm. As you said, he might be an inch shorter, or maybe a step slow, maybe not big enough. And the junior college kids. Because of transfer portal, coaches are waiting and holding those couple of scholarships in case they're too seasoned for that portal deal. They wait to see if somebody fantastic comes through there, and they're saving a scholarship for those guys. So really, I don't know why people wouldn't start more of a broad walk-on program or the gray shirt system that's still in effect.
Coach, the transfer portal has to dry up, it seems like. And it's going to, give these kids opportunities. And hopefully that'll be the case more so than not, because, some kids need a scholarship to be able to go to college. I wish mine had one. That's for
no question. No question. Yeah. It's like the NIL thing. I mean, you have a couple of cases there at LSU with kids on an NIL deal. And if they don't perform well, or the kid's not on the court, I mean, do they give it back? Is that rescinded? Is there something in the clause or the contract that says, wait a minute, you're going to get a portion of this right now? So the way some of them play, even I go back in the Saints, for instance, you look at the draft that they've had. I mean, this last year, they got one guy that's actually playing for them right now. And they have no restrictions as far as drafting people. They can go see those guys as many times. They can interview them. They take the Wonderling test. But yet they still make drastic mistakes over the years, But Coach, you and I had briefly talked on the text about something that's pretty dear to your heart, and it involves a little league and then football and baseball. Why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Coach, it's you talked about you were helping with the youth program, or somebody asked you to help, and it's one of these things where I believe that we're getting off track in youth sports, and we're more focused about winning and losing opposed to teaching kids fundamentals. Case in point, an offense goes out and doesn't score points, a youth coach is going to go work team offense. Well, that's not what's broke. It doesn't matter what you run. If the kid can't step right, or he can't get in a stance, or he can't block, you're just trying to Band-Aid the issue. And, you want kids, I'm just using football for an example. If my kids had an opportunity to have a good high school career in athletics, I think my goal has been achieved. Anything more than that's going to be on his shoulders, because that work ethic and that character and drive is something that he and only he can push, no matter how hard I try. So if he goes to college and play, that's on them. And as his parents, we can't worry about that. And, the other thing is, I'd urge parents, just because you send them to practice doesn't mean you don't need to work with them. I mean, light up your grill some hamburgers, talk football or throw and catch, and, don't miss those days because they go by fast. But at the same time, you're helping your kid understand the game. And as a ninth grade coach this year, I was shocked at the lack of football IQ these kids had. They couldn't tell me who on the line of scrimmage was eligible for a pass. We went 8-2 somehow. But the whole thing is they got to be taught this. And I don't mind teaching it, but it seems to me that it could be taught at a lot earlier age. And, let's look at baseball for a second. People are so tied up about trying to win, they'll cut kids to get a better kid, but they don't want to coach them. Coaching's not out there. Coaching is something that you do over and over and over and over and over every single day until it's something you demand of your players. You don't just say, all right, cut them and then bring in another one. You can win some rings. That's good, but it really doesn't do much, other than that. And I just think if we're coaching youth, whether it's baseball, soccer, whatever, we really need to hone in on the fundamentals, because fundamentals is a roadmap. And anytime you get in trouble, just like in life, you have fundamentals you go back to. That's the way it should be in youth sports as well. And they use those fundamentals not only when they're in 6th grade, but in 12th grade as well.
It carries over time. You're exactly right. What I see too is that, parental involvement, sometimes the parents are, the parents nowadays are a little bit different. From the situation, the only thing they see is their own son or their own daughter. It's the only thing they see. And what I get nervous about when I see a parent say, okay, this kid was he had a little sore throat, a little sniff today. Well, he can't go to practice because of that, and it's something like, it might be something very, very minor, but yet they're so involved with that, and they're really babying these kids and cuddling some of these kids. Coach, it leads to what you just said. On a side note from that, is travel ball. Travel ball is hurting football. Travel ball is hurting the other sports. Travel volleyball is hurting the other sports on the girls' side. Travel volleyball in New Orleans is tremendously big, but it's hurting the basketball pros. I know a lot of schools in New Orleans, their volleyball team travels all over the place, but they only have maybe a minimum of 9 or 10 girls playing basketball. And softball, just a minimum amount of doing that because of travel volleyball. Well, travel baseball is hurting soccer. It's hurting football because they also do it in the fall. So, and we got to get away from that, exactly what you're talking about. And because what coaches are doing with that, they're lining them up and they're just managing. They're not coaching. They get the best 10 guys. So, well, you're going to play shortstop this game. Next game, you're going to play third base. But are they really drilling those kids and teaching them fundamentals of technique? Some are. I've seen some that do it. But yet, the bottom line, they all think they could be Derek Jeter. You know what I mean? And I said, where are all these travel ball kids? Something like that. But parents put a lot of money into this thing. And but that kid that plays all the time, that loves the sports, and he's going to do a lot on his own. It's not what a lot of people refer to it as daddy ball. It's not that. And there's a place for travel ball. There's a place for it, but not instead of another sport. I think if you look at St. Charles Catholic, now use them as a model, because they've done a great job there of mixing most of those football guys are baseball players too. Let me put it this way: most of the baseball team play football, and that's your better athletes. That's guy with a hand-eye coordination. That's your quarterbacks. That's your DBs. That's your receivers, running backs. I mean, so that's a great model for people, because I know a lot of people would say, well, let's pigeonhole this guy. I'm a heck of a baseball player. Let's not do this. I had a conversation with one today. He hurt his labrum, so he's not playing right now in football. But thank God he's coming back next year, and he's a quarterback. And he's coming back, and he's going to play. But he's also a committed baseball player, which I said, I really encouraged him. I said, thank God for more people like you. I said, don't enjoy this experience. You just said that. Enjoy the experience of being a high school athlete. It's not about the trophy on the wall, but enjoy that walk.
Coach Shake Snyder, who's the baseball coach at Dutchtown, sent me a text that he had sent his baseball players last week. And there was 7 of his baseball players that had scored or a part of a touchdown last week. And that's what happens when you have a baseball and a football coach that can be on the same page and do what's best for the athlete and not what's best for the sport. You can still have success in both sports.
Amen.
And playing, but this specialization these kids are doing, and orthopedic surgeons will tell you, Coach, they see more arm surgeries or shoulder injuries now with baseball than they ever have before. Well, why is that? They need to take a break, and they just don't.
I agree. Yeah, as a coach, I want the guy on my football team or whatever that's been on the line, was 1-on-1 in basketball, and the game's on the line. I want the guy that wants the ball on 4th and 1. He wants to carry the ball. I want the guy that's been at the plate with the bases drunk, 3-2 pitch. I want that guy. That same guy that wants to be there, that's the guy I want on my team, regardless what the sport is. It might even be soccer. It makes everybody better. A few years ago at St. Charles, we had some very average soccer players, but the soccer team went convinced 4 or 5 of the football players just to come on the soccer team, just to make them more physical, to make them more competitive. They knew nothing about, but they're knocking down people, and stuff like that, and you get caught as they call it in soccer. But the bottom line, once you're an athlete, in training, you don't need to play that year round. If you're an athlete, you can go out there with a minimum amount of time and still have success.
It's a mentality ultimately, and that's what Coach Shake Snyder was saying. He said, Todd, I want them to play football because I think it will help their mentality when they play baseball. And I'm like, I think it's a huge crossover, any of it. And football and baseball, I think baseball starts here almost when football ends. It used to not be that way. We used to have spring in February, and then after spring we started baseball. But I'm in favor of the 2-sport athlete, and I think that parents need to take a look at that and don't say, oh, you've got to decide when you're a junior. If he's good, they'll find him. Don't worry about it.
Right. Right. But Coach, listen, to close it out, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? I appreciate you being with us for this time, and I know you got to go check and look for some and to check the pot to see what's in there, right?
That's right. It's water boiling, I'll tell you. And no, I really enjoyed it, and I've always respected the heck out of you. I think we played against each other a couple times, and I always enjoy seeing you, talking ball, and having a good time. And I look forward to seeing you here probably in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Coach, listen, keep pounding the rock, and you just keep doing what you're doing and teaching fundamentals. Fundamentals never leaves you. You know what I mean? So,
that's right.
Thanks for being with us, Todd, and stay in touch, will you? Listen,
all right, thank you both.
Just remember, I'm available for lunch now, Monday through Friday.
Deal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot.
We want to once again thank our special guest, Todd Black, for joining us on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, LSR, for being a part of our show. LSR produces Southern Cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Samuel Liccardo Jr. and R.E.P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Liccardo and R.E. Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Welcome back to our third and final segment of the Let's Be Frank video podcast. We'd like to thank Riverlands Insurance for being a part of our show. Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. So we want to go ahead and move on to our Let's Be Frank segment presented by ULCS. And this week, Coach, you want to go ahead and take a look at the college football playoff picture and your take on how this should shake out. So, Coach, go ahead and take it away.
All right, guys. Listen, don't put too much on this. When you go make your bet, but only about $1,000 for starters. But this is what I'm predicting for at least this Saturday. I think Georgia defeats Alabama, and I think Alabama is not the same Alabama. A lot of people, Nick Saban, everybody's got great respect for him, but they've struggled most of the year. Their quarterback is good, but he's not there yet. They still have a lot of good players. We all understand that, but I think Georgia's got great running backs. Both their running backs are good. They got a very efficient quarterback, and they have a lot of guys on defense that can play in the NFL. So I look for Georgia to defeat Alabama and beat the spread. I think Michigan's going to defeat Iowa. You know what I mean? That's not a reach. Everybody knows that where Iowa is. Iowa is just great defensively, but they have a real issue with scoring. So they're going to be. You could look for Michigan and Georgia to be in those top four. I look for Oregon to defeat Washington, and the spread seemed to widen. And it's really odd that Washington is ranked ahead of them, but yet here's Oregon behind them. I think Bo Nix and company. Oregon's got real good players. They have an SEC type defense now, and which they didn't have before. And I think they're playing with a little chip on their shoulder. I hope Oregon makes the top four. I think they're deserving. They're one of the best four teams in the country. Then you have Florida State. I think Florida State's going to defeat Louisville. In that ball game, that's going to be a close ball game. Even though Florida State playing with a backup quarterback, but they surround that guy with a lot of good players, and I think Coach Norville will have them motivated. They're kind of the ugly duckling because people are trying to kick them out of the top four. But if they win, they have to be regarded as one of the four, kind of like what TCU was. And now, right now, the team that's kind of outside looking in right now, and I don't know, was Texas and Ohio State. If Texas wins against Oklahoma State, what happens here? Is Texas included? A lot of people say, well, I think Texas ought to be in there before Oregon. But right now, I mean, I think Texas would be a good choice. I don't see any of those teams being upset. Now, Louisville, I think, has the best chance of maybe upsetting Florida State, but I don't think that happens. But so I look for the top four to be Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Florida State. Now, because if Oregon does beat Washington, which is a number 3 seed or number 4, they have to move them up at the top 4. They have to put them in. That keeps Texas and Ohio State out. Just a little local flavor. Tulane, that we're all pulling for them to win against SMU, and hopefully that can happen. And if they do, they're going to get a big time bowl, and that bowl could be against somebody like Texas, could be Washington if they would lose here. So that's my pick. The playoff pictures will be Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and Florida State when it all is said and done on Sunday's selection show.
Thanks, Coach. And how much does this year prove that there needs to be an expansion to the playoffs, in your opinion? Because you've been fighting for this for a while. We've had this discussion, and you've said outright that a lot of coaches didn't want the system because it was a fear of the level of success that was perceived by those around them, including historic coaches. So looking at this system, how much is this year just further proof that there needs to be an expansion of some type, or an expansion with some adjustments in reference to the way that the conference title games are structured?
You know, you're always going to have people on the bubble, whether you go to 8 teams, 12 teams, 16 teams. You always have somebody, well, I should be one of these. But you have to reward people for playing in a tough conference. Look what's happening next year with the SEC, with Oklahoma and Texas coming in there. You need to have more people included, because one loss, you get a loss early in the year, does that mean you're done? No, I mean, let's do something better than that. I mean, that's what's normally happening right now. I mean, so let's reward people for playing, and we want to see those good games early in the year. We don't want to see these. We don't want to see Georgia State against LSU. We want to see the real good matchups early in the year, the Florida State and LSU. But so give a team a chance to rebound from that and maybe still make the playoffs and maybe even win it. I mean, that's happened many, many times. It's happened on all levels too. It's happened in the NFL. But I like 16. I think 16 teams, and then you go to 8, then you go to 4. I think I like that. The other division does it, and why can't the D1 division do it? I think they'll make so much money that would dwarf the Super Bowl. If they would figure this out, it would dwarf the Super Bowl, because it'd be interesting. And every game's important. Every game is a big game. I don't get it. Now, I did sit on the meeting when I was assistant coach in college. I sat in on a meeting, and 2 guys, Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno, were in the meeting. And they stood up and they talked against the playoff system because, 1, they said it put too much pressure on coaches. 2, it extended the season too long. And, and kids had class. But right now, kids don't have class. They're playing that stretch where kids are out. They got a 6-week buffer before they start the spring semester. So they're not in class. So that shoots that theory out. And the other thing, the pressure on coaches, well, there's pressure on them anyway. How many coaches this past week would let go after maybe a 2-year deal with their contract? So there's pressure anyway. And naturally, the more money you pay them, the more pressure. But maybe you don't have to pay them that much. Just pay them by incentives about if they make the playoffs or something like that. But yet, I do think this thing needs to be expanded. You're going to have a lot of controversy no matter what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, you're talking about pressure on coaches. Ryan Day is being considered on the hot seat after going 1 loss the past, or 1 or 2 losses the past 3 years, so he can't beat Michigan. So to your point, I'm with you. I don't know that it would be any more pressure than it already is. Very high stakes job, but I'm with you on 16 teams as well. I think 12 teams is a mistake purely because of the standpoint. I'm not in favor of a group of people who are athletic directors, people who have a vested stake in who makes it to the playoffs. Their monetary bottom line is being impacted. I would much rather let's go back to, as you mentioned, a PowerPoint system like the BCS. Take it as it is, top 16 teams, and maybe with some adjustments. But I'm with you. I think 16 teams is a number. I would love that. Taking a look at our next segment with our Blitz the Ball coach, you're going to be talking about coach speak and what they're actually saying.
Coach, what's going to happen? You hear these TV commentators, especially the guys that play football, they start talking about personnel groupings, and they'll use numbers like that's 10 personnel, 11 personnel, that's 21 personnel, and people sitting there say, what does that mean? If you're not playing the game And a lot of people, even if they play the game, they don't understand what that. It's just it's just a abbreviated version of saying exactly, okay, when we talk about 10 personnel, you talk about, first of all, you talk about the number of backs, and then you talk about the number of tight ends. So 10 means one back, no tight end. Okay, that's what 10 personnel means. Now, some people, they'll do the personnel groupings and they'll give that a name. So that's really gets it, but that's a really a little expanded. That's coaches inside the meeting. They come up with structures because they tell you what the personnel is. 11 personnel is one back and one tight end. That's what 11 personnel is. 12 personnel is one back, and two tight ends. Some people call this H formation. I mean, to make it simple, Iowa the other day was using actually 13 personnel, which was three tight ends, which a lot of people don't even have that on their whole team nowadays with the spread set. 21 personnel is traditional. 21, two backs and a tight end. That's traditional people that had the I formation or the flex back in the backfield. That's considered 21. Then you had 20 personnel where you had two backs and no tight end, and you had three wide receivers out there. So basically, that's the terminology that coaches use and determine that. And when you're breaking down film, that carries a lot of weight. Now, you still can give these people, like for instance, if I want three receivers in the game, I might give that a number. I might call that birds. Let's say for eagle, falcon, something like that, or hawk. You can give them a name, and the kids know exactly from that. They know what personnel belongs out there. So, but this is coach talk. And so when a commentator says, well, that's 10 personnel, 11 personnel, you have a pretty good idea what they're referring to.
Coach, I believe in the past you mentioned that you were the name coach, you said, for Tulane. Is that correct?
Yeah. Within the room, you sit in a room with the offensive line coach, the tight end coach, the running back coach, receiver coach, the coordinator, and the head football coach a lot of times, and maybe a couple of GAs. And the coach would get on the board and say, well, let's come up with a name with this particular play. Let's come up with a name with this personnel grouping. Let's come up with a name with different things. And it was kind of fun because you go through and you come up with goofy things. But you want to come up with something that the kids will remember. They'll come up with something like Geronimo or whatever it might be. Come up with a lot of names, but the kids remember that by association, and and so that makes a lot of sense. So as the coach would turn to me and say, "Trek, what you got?" I mean, so I don't know. Let me think about this for a while. But I would come up with something stupid.
What's the favorite that you've come up with, or maybe if not just yours, like what do you think is your player's favorite that you came up with, and what's the favorite that you came up with?
Oh, I had a play that we called it was a drop draw. I called it a peekaboo draw, and the kids loved to practice it. And we ran it one time for a touchdown, and the kids just loved it. And you can hear them say, "Run the peekaboo draw, coach." And it was something like that. But I mean, there's several. I mean, there's several things. And in the old days when somebody would type your game plan, the secretary would run over there and say, "Coach, what is all this stuff?" She had no idea because you put all those terms in there with the game plan. But now you kind of basically do your own game plan online.
Coach, when did you run the peekaboo draw? I've seen it in practice. I've never seen it run. When did you run it?
I read it one time. I only got 12 yards. I ran it again when I was Jeff. We ran it for a touchdown against. In fact, it was against Rome. Is
that the last time you ran it? Did you ever run it at St. Charles?
We ran it at St. Charles, but it only got 12 yards. But it didn't go all the way. In fact, one guy just didn't disguise it properly. But it was just one of those little gimmicks, and the kids like that. And I subscribe to Bill Walsh's theory. If you're going to use a gimmick, use it before the other team does.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our lock of the week. As Coach, a limited number of games that we have to choose from, but which one do you like in this week?
I like Georgia. I really like Georgia. I think Georgia's a well-rounded football team. Even though they've struggled at times with people, I like them. I mean, if I had to pick just the winner, I'd pick Oregon, but I'm going with Georgia in the points. If I had just to pick the winner, it definitely would be Oregon. But for the point spread, Oregon's point spread is a little bit flashy, So I'm just going to go with Georgia.
I'm going to go ahead and go. I agree with you. I think when you get to this point in the season, there's very few games to pick from. 6 points for Georgia seems like the most feasible and reasonable. 2.5 points with Florida State and Louisville really has me tempted to take Louisville. But if you only allow me to pick one, I got to go with you. I'm with Georgia this week. And that'll do it for this week's show. So, Coach, we're going to go ahead and go over our socials. And, again, make sure to follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Remember, on Facebook is at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. X, Instagram, and TikTok are the LBF Podcast. So, Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here this week?
No, guys, I mean, it's an exciting time because the semifinals in high school there, and then what's going on in college. Well, what a great weekend we're looking forward to. I know when it comes to football. So if you're a football junkie, this is the week that you want to be glued to the television.
It should be another great week of football and getting into the dome for the high school games. And there's no better atmosphere in terms of, I know you played in it many times, but there's no better high school atmosphere in a home stadium in high school than semifinals, because you're not playing finals at that stadium. So the intensity of some of these matchups should be fantastic. And
a lot of states inquire about this. How do y'all pull this off in Louisiana to do this? We might be 48th, 49th in a lot of categories, but we're pretty smart when it comes to these championship games, being held at one location. And you can stay there for right now. It's 3 nights, but I mean, it used to be 2 nights and see a lot of football. Jason, next week we have a special guest, and looking forward to Coach Willie Fritz, and with Tulane. It's going to be our guest next week, and hopefully by that time he's the conference champion.
All right, so that'll do it for our show. So for our producer Justin Thomas, for head coach Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe, and remember, let's play ball until we lay up the good times roll.